Everyone's life is built up upon high points, low points, and disasters. You know, and some people count their disasters as high points or low points, but that's just a wrong valuation. If we are wise, we can learn and grow from the experiences of another person's had in their life. The good, the bad, the ugly can be dynamic teachers for us if we just listen to learn. Well, today we mark the passing of James Derek Knight. He died 3 weeks before his 63rd birthday. He didn't leave a legacy of financial wealth. He left behind enduring memories. He was my friend for over 40 years. His passing weighs very heavily on me, as he's not replaceable. Everybody's unique. You just can't simply find a friend that stays with you for 40 years. Yeah. And the thing is, if I was in need of help or I needed something done, he was always there. And that's something that it's hard to find anywhere, where there's somebody willing to step out and be a help. So what made Derek Knight special and valuable in my life? Well, there's a number of points that I have. The first is he could be trusted. And that's what God calls us to be. Trusty. You know? Theft was not part of his character or any of his choices of life revolved around. He just, if it's yours, it's yours. And he would protect it if somebody's trying to abuse it. The next point is he was always helpful and willing to serve. Help out, contribute to the best of his ability. And many people laughed at him for that. They mocked him for it. Why are you doing that? You're not getting paid for it. What is your life if everything you do has to be paid for? Do you realize that your life equals zero if that's the case? Because money is just saying, I owe you nothing, stupid. But he didn't do things for money. He did things out of love and out of a desire to serve. The third point is when he goofed up on something, he would admit it and ask forgiveness right away. He never tried blaming others or making up excuses for why something happened. And I really appreciated that in him. Sure, he would make mistakes, but he would always own up immediately. Or he would come immediately and tell you, well, this happened or that happened. He wouldn't disturb me if I was sleeping and he did something stupid during the night, Burn the fish till it was charcoal, but, little things like that. Wait till morning when I got up and seen the disaster. 4, he was extremely tolerant of others. he never sought to add to the burdens of those who came for help or assistance from the, to the foundation that came for assistance or help. He would never add to their burdens. He would be tolerant, he'd be willing to listen to what they had to say and stuff like that. And not interrupt. Not put in what he thought immediately in without ever hearing them out. And that's another, shall we say, tenet that we find in the Bible. It says, hear the other man out. Hear the whole story. Don't make your decisions on a half-ass hearing. When people came, and even if they were abusive, he was tolerant. It didn't rile him, get him angry. He says, they're in the Father's hands, he'll deal with them. There wasn't vendetta. It just, he had a sense of where he belonged and on that point, and he says, I have no need to get angry. Anything, well, what can man do? They're just mere mortals. When I was under attack and very weak, Derek would step in and help out without being asked or begged, or when he seen a need for something, he would just step in and help out. And no one else did. No one else. But he did. Because that was his nature of who he was. And I think it's an example that we have to learn in dealing with one another and dealing with the people that we come in contact. Are we so caught up in our own self-importance we can't help out? We can't help anyone. Another point is he was always thankful when something was done for him. He would go out of his way to make sure you knew that he appreciated what was done. Even if it was a simple point of, well, I got extra supper, do you want some here? I know he didn't like to cook, but that point of appreciation, that something was done, even the smallest little things for him. Having that thankfulness and people would show their gratitude in different ways to him. One person says he helped them out with a loan in an emergency, never asked for the money back. The guy went and stole the tires off his car, or the wheels completely off his car. A couple of times another person went and siphoned all the gas out of his tank. Stole his license plate and went through a number of red lights, and then came back and put the license plate back on his car. Never got angry, bitched about it. He paid the thing off and said, well, what are you going to do? Just forget forgive him and move on. Life's too short to be collecting problems that other people have. Yeah, it's too short. I collect them and live them out. He was always ready to give, even when he knew he was being taken advantage of. See, Derek enjoyed being able to give. Not having to give, but being able to give. And it made a real difference in how he approached things in life. A real difference. He was not a complainer, even when he was suffering in great pain. He had to be forced to go and see a doctor or to have the pain dealt with. You know, he just didn't want to acknowledge that the pain was there. And even right to the end, no matter how bad he looked in that, he was saying, well, I'm expecting to be better. I know a day's coming, I will be better. He found a peace and a joy in gardening. He was always happy when he could make the yard look beautiful, or this fixed up, that fixed up, and this painted, that painted, you know, all the repairs. When he was strong enough to do it, he really enjoyed it. And he wanted things to look peaceful for other people. Pleasant to be observed. You know, I remember he bought about $180 worth of flowers to plant out front, and about 2 weeks later, somebody came that was not in the right mind because of speed, and made sure they stomped and killed all the flowers. He didn't get all bitching, complaining about it. He just went and bought new flowers and replanted them. That type of character. He never seen people as sources as to what he could get, but as to what he could do to bless someone to make them happy. And that's, you know, you see people that claim to be Christians, claim to be believers, but they never step out of the way to make somebody else happy. Yeah. It's all about me. I'm important, not you. Well, that just wasn't Derek. No. So when we look, what could we learn out of Derek's life? Well, I think the first thing is not turning your pain over to Yeshua daily, weekly, on the new moons. Results in an early death, because we're not made to carry that pain. And, you know, no matter what pain he was in, he had even trouble talking to the doctor that he was in, you know, this was bothering him, that was causing a problem, or anything like that. So he wouldn't turn things over to Yeshua. But, that just, he held it in. I think it's that, some sort of stoicism Brits have. That's, stubbornness about, keep the upper lip, which is a stupid thing anyway. So it should be just, stuff should be just turned over and not carried. 2, that not forgiving yourself for your sins, your weaknesses, failures, and other faults quickly drains away your life and mental energy. And he could forgive everybody else, but not himself. And it encourages that wasting away. It encourages one to go to drinking and to try and bury the pain of not forgiving yourself. 3, that booze does not solve a single problem. It just momentarily numbs the pain, but doesn't solve a thing. It adds to the problems later on. And we see this in our society. Everybody's running to cannabis. Oh, it's going to solve all my problems. I'll have control of the most powerful God in the world. But they don't. What happens is it overwhelms them and kills them. They become mentally, spiritually dead. The 4th point to be known is that stubbornness is a pride that blocks opportunity. Well, if there's one thing I knew about Derek, he was stubborn. He was going to do it his way, or what he had learned to be his way, and that was it. It was going to be done his way. He was stubborn that way. And in some ways, people confuse that with being steadfast, but stubbornness is not being steadfast. He had steadfast qualities on certain things, but he was totally overwhelmed in other things. And see, he allowed the spirit of mockery to make him stubborn. And it showed up more when he would drink. The next thing we can learn from him is that keeping oneself in seclusion intensifies mental stress and the desire to drink. You can't seclude yourself from the world. You're meant to be part of the world, living in the world, but not a victim of it, not a slave into it. And he had this romantic idea that you could just lock yourself away and the world would pass you by with all its problems. There's no island like that. There's no place you can hide from the effects of what's going on in the world. Until Yeshua comes and pulls you to a place of safety, there is no safe place that doesn't have problems. And we can live in a delusion that we could find one. And that's sort of what he did, especially in the end. Here, the last 4 years of his life, he thought that by secluding himself away, all the problems in the world would just pass him by. But they didn't. They kept catching up and attacking him. When you rely on avoidance, it weakens you and steals your peace. So when you're weakened and your peace is being stolen, if you have an addiction habit, what do you run to? The addiction. You're not running to Yeshua, you're not running to Jesus, you're running to the addiction for the peace. And the world says that's okay, but God says it isn't. The seventh point is one should never neglect one's commitment to obey God. When you do, the joy of life disappears. And you've seen that this happen. There are 3 women in his life that said they were going to marry him. And he's getting everything ready. And they up and leave him for some other guy. That rejection was a pain that he couldn't talk about or live with. And he wouldn't turn it over to Yeshua. Derek answered a question for me before he going into this hospital the last time we were talking. He's on the couch. And I asked him what lesson from his life would he seek to pass on to his family and friends and those that would listen. And he thought for a while and he says, serve everyone, forgive everyone, and don't seek a control over anyone. Don't seek to control them. Seek the will of our Father in heaven and don't seek to be self-important. It just turns you into a crippled jackass. And he meant it. And with this advice, we say goodbye to a friend. Rest in peace. Yeshua's return is very soon.